You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates. You're listening to A Pirate's Life for Me on The Sports Objective. Join us every Friday at noon as we catch up with a member of Pirate Nation. Here's your host, Bubba Rosenbaum.
What is going on, Pirate Nation? Welcome into another edition of the Sports Objective, and specifically A Pirate's Life for Me. It's our first episode of this program, and a little over a couple months since we caught up with Carl Davis, East Carolina alum, author, and benefactor back in the month of January. And right now, very excited to be joined by someone who's an East Carolina Hall of Famer, Pirate legacy. Her family are just Pirates through and through, and we've been attempting to line this up for 3 months now, if not longer, but we saw each other down at the Birmingham Bowl, and we're finally making it happen. Better late than never, right? Welcome into the show, Michelle Clayton. Michelle, we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Bubba. Yes, finally, we're making it happen.
Yeah, this is not a drill, but appreciate your time. But before we dive too deeply into your background with East Carolina, just tell our viewers and listeners, a little about yourself. I know you grew up in the Piedmont, at least in your high school years, and you were from the epitome of a pirate family.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we moved around quite a bit. Dad's job took us all over the East Coast, but spent a little time in the Triangle from 5th to 9th grade, and then ended up in the Piedmont for my sophomore to senior year, at East Forsyth High School. But to say that we're a pirate family is an understatement. I actually, they say as you get older, you get more emotional, and holy moly, I get super emotional about it these days. Dad played football there. Mom was a All-American golfer there. And then I ended up there, and all 3 sisters behind me. So there's 6 of us, true pirate legacy. And I would beg to differ that there's a family that has any stronger cheering section than the Clayton family when it comes to game day of any sport for the Pirates. And our kids, husbands that had zero connection to the Pirates are now diehards. So yeah, it's a bleed purple and gold family, that's for sure.
Yeah, for someone who doesn't have a strong allegiance, like you were saying, as far as your spouse, that's what it'll definitely suck you in, just the excitement and energy of Dowdy Ficklen Stadium or Clark LeClaire, whatever the case may be, and just the Pirate Nation's excitement and energy definitely makes for a fun game day atmosphere, whether it's tailgating or at the actual game. But just take us back to your childhood. What are some of your favorite memories of maybe making a road trip to a game or games right there in Greenville?
Oh yeah, I think my favorite memories are thinking back to tailgating out in front of, if you think of in front of or behind the football stadium, or in front of the basketball arena when it was still all grass. My sisters and I, in our little cheerleading uniforms that mom would make for us, we would sit there doing our little cheerleading stunts, thinking that we were something. And it was all grass. I mean, there were trees there. And even when I went to college in fall of '94, behind the stadium was still all grass. Williams Arena, that had already been asphalted and turned into a parking lot, but behind the stadium was still grass. But we used to park there at Williams Arena where it was grass. Like, it's just it's just so crazy to think about. But even funnier, I can remember one time when we were living in New York. And oh gosh, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize on air. I can't remember exactly what game it is or was right now, but we got in the car, all 6 of us, and drove a few hours so that we could get to a hotel to get regionally where the game was going to be televised. Because where we lived in New York, the game was not being televised. So we drove to a hotel so that we could watch the Pirates on TV. That's how committed this family is. And we've been like that from the day I was born. I spent my first birthday in Ficklin Stadium. So it's been a true Pirate journey from womb to today.
Now, I know you said you were in the triangle from, I believe it was, 5th through 9th grade. So
Yes,
I guess prior to that, you were up in New York. When you were in New York, were you able to attend any games at the Carrier Dome?
We never ever went. Dad did. We never made that trip. I competed there, but I never went to a football game there.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Now, exactly where were y'all? Right in New York City, or right outside
No.
of
We
New York
were
City,
we were
or
about
where were you?
we were about 40 miles north of the city, in a
Okay.
small area called Montgomery. Very, very little remote country area. Not too far from Albany, about an hour and a half, 2 hours from there, which is where my mom's family was, or actually still is. So that was an awesome time to be there because we were actually close to her family, which was pretty neat. That was the only time we were ever close to them.
So you had that passion for the Pirates from childhood, obviously from birth, like myself.
Yes.
But you know, taking a look, there in your middle school, high school years, and you talk about how you began to get involved in sports. Your mom, obviously a Hall of Fame golfer, as you mentioned. But what were the first sports that you played? Obviously, track and field is what you're known for at East Carolina. Obviously inducted into the Hall of Fame there back in 2011, and we'll talk more about that later. But just tell Pirate Nation about your childhood as it pertains to playing sports.
Everybody, I think, believes that I would have grown up playing golf, but my mom never pushed that on any of us. Now, I was the one that had a custom golf club at the age of probably about a year and a half, or even younger, maybe. And there's pictures of me dragging that around the fairways and such with mom. But I never really played or did a whole lot with it. She just didn't. I think it was such a part of her life and so demanding and pushed on her. She just never did that with any of the 4 of us. For me, for my sisters, we played and played and played. Dad, we were always in the backyard throwing a ball, catching a ball. But my first sport, my first love, my first dream was to be an Olympic gymnast. I started that at the age of, I guess, about 4. And for 11 years, that was what I pursued day in and day out. I was competitive, was one of those 5-6 days of the week in the gym, no family vacations, all that good stuff. Tried to derail Pirate Saturdays at times. It never succeeded, but came close at times. But yeah, gymnastics was my baby and my first love. I did do other sports. Softball came very easy to me. I loved it, but it was a bit too slow for me. I needed to be a little more active. So gymnastics was kind of the mainstay. I played a little bit of basketball as well within middle school and high school. But from gymnastics, I did gymnastics through my freshman year of high school. And then at that point, track had kind of taken over. I started organized track my seventh grade year in Raleigh at West Millbrook High School as a Wildcat. And just, I had always been fast, always had speed. And it just, I hate to say it, kind of came easy to me. And I, quote, tried out for the shot put and threw 5 feet further than everybody else. So the shot put kind of found me. I didn't really find it. So I was a sprinter and a thrower. And so I did track and gymnastics for 3 years. And then, like I said, track kind of took over. And then from 10th grade on, it was track world.
So with sprints, were you 1 and 2 or
Yeah,
which
I ran
sprint
the
event?
I ran the 1, 2, and the 4 actually. Mainly relays, just because I actually long jumped and triple jumped also. So the field events kind of dominated the main part of the meet, and I would run over and run like the 4x1, and then at the end of the meet I would run the 4x4. And then if it was like a relay that we were at, like an invitational or something, I might run the 4x2 for us or something like that.
So yeah, I was a sprinter myself, but more so just to prepare myself for football and to get faster. And as far as the 400 is concerned, didn't exactly know what I was getting myself into. Uh, we were down a 400 runner due to sickness, and my coach just trying to give our team an opportunity to earn some points, threw me in the event. I said, sure, I'll do it. And so for the first 310 meters, I was in pretty good shape. And then, man, that final straightaway, I feel like I had knives in my hamstrings. So, yes, when you hadn't been preparing for that and you were just doing 1 and 200, it's no joke.
I think even when you prepare for it, it feels that way. I can't say I ever fully prepared for it because I was always concentrating on throwing, but that gosh darn race is, whew, that's something.
High school career, you talk about becoming more committed to track and that becoming what you were devoting more and more time to. So talk about your recruitment and did you consider anywhere else besides East Carolina?
Oh yes, we could discuss my recruitment story for a really long time, but we don't have time for that today. We'll keep it short, sweet, and to the point. I actually was determined not to go to East Carolina, crazy enough. I just wanted to do something kind of new. I wanted to branch out and be Michelle. Not that I didn't clearly love East Carolina, and it was just everything I did know. It was everything I loved. I just wanted something different, something I could identify with and it be me. But lo and behold, at the end of the day, Charlie Chew Justice came and visited the house, and I let him spend, gosh, it was like 4 to 5 hours there. And I let him back out of the driveway and drive down the old road. And we all waved goodbye from the stoop of the porch after we had spent most of the visit talking about Pirate football. And then we closed the front door. I looked at my parents. I told them, well, I hope you're happy. I'm going to East Carolina. And I proceeded to walk into my bedroom. So yeah. Good job, Michelle. Wasn't that sweet of you? But I had opportunities to go other places. Virginia Tech, UVA, UNC, and Wake Forest were my other 4. But at the end of the day, with academics and athletics, ECU just made the most sense. And to be honest, probably where I knew I'd be the most comfortable. It just kind of felt like home. I knew it like the back of my hand. I'd been going there since I was a baby. And even though it was constantly changing, I knew I would be taken care of there. I knew I'd be all right. And when it was all said and done, it worked out beautifully.
And one thing the East Carolina track and field program has had is longevity as far as its leadership. Obviously, now Kurt Kraft for a couple decades or so,
Yeah.
and then prior to that, the legendary Bill Carson, who we run a meet for
Yep.
each and every spring.
Yeah, that's this weekend actually.
So so obviously you say Coach Justice was one that was recruiting you, but
Mhm.
just talk about your. Obviously, you were very familiar with Pirate football, and I'm sure other things. But how familiar were you with the track and field program prior to getting recruited?
Very. We had, I mean, just because it was track, I had been following them and was very privy to what was going on. Dad and I had gone to several meets. We had gone and watched them at Raleigh Relays. We had gone over to Chapel Hill and watched them. So, I had been keeping up with them. There was a young lady, Susie Schramm, who was out of High Point. I told my dad that I would break her school records one day, and lo and behold, that is whose school record I ended up breaking. Um, just random things like that. She was the one that held the shot put records, indoor and outdoor. But yeah, so from not so much from the women's standpoint, but the men's team under Coach Carson had so much success. We had Olympians, we had Pan Am team members, just national team member after national team member. And I always knew that. Like, we were always on top of that. I knew Coach Carson since I was a young child. And so I had always followed their success. And Coach Carson, I can honestly say, was one of my biggest fans. I absolutely love that man. And no matter where we were, he always, if I had a successful day, he was one of the first people to congratulate me. And if I had a crappy day, he was one of the first people to let me know. And that is one thing I loved about that man, was he was so real, and he was just amazing. And his wife Ruth is just awesome, and we just we miss him. We miss him a lot. But yeah, I had followed them for a good while, so I knew the twins were there. Tara and Dava Rhodes were there when I was being recruited, and they were having one heck of a collegiate career. So they had kind of put the Pirates back on the map nationally. So I was coming into a really good situation.
I didn't really know Coach Carson, but when I was, I guess, middle school, early high school, attending some football scrimmages, my dad and I, we had the opportunity to chat with Coach Carson on 2 or 3 occasions there at Dowdy Ficklin. And, he was always very much a gentleman, but like you were saying, his passion for his athletes,
Mhm.
it was noticed very quickly. My dad asked him about a couple of sprinters and different student athletes from over the years that had been very successful. And yeah, Coach Carson, immediately started beaming when their names were mentioned.
Oh, without a doubt, and could talk about those guys for forever. And those guys stayed in touch with that man until literally up until he died. Um, that's one thing. He gave so many young men an opportunity that they wouldn't have gotten. He brought them to East Carolina, got them into college, gave them the opportunity to not only run, but to get a degree. And they're now out there doing amazing things in this world. I stay in touch with many of them. And there's not a time that we're not back in Greenville that the whole conversation does not come back to revolving around Wild Bill. I mean, that man, he is something. He is sorely missed, but boy, he left a mark. That's for sure. He did amazing things for a lot of young men.
So talk about that transition going from East Forsyth High School into being a Division I track and field athlete.
It's a transition, I think, for any young person, but it wasn't that big of a deal for me. The first couple of weeks, I think my dad would probably laugh when he hears me that I just said that, because he's going to be like, you got to be kidding me. The first couple of weeks weren't easy, but in terms of training and schoolwork, I was prepared for that. I'm about as type A as they come. I am my own worst enemy. There's nobody that's going to be harder on me than me. So I was prepared for the workload that was going to be thrown at me. I was prepared for whatever was to come. So that part I had no trouble with. The level of competition, I don't think you can ever be prepared for, because that's, just like in football, it's the speed of the game. With track and field, it's just the level of the competition. Everybody's going to be as good as you, if not better. That's what it's all about. So that part was, a little bit of a transition, an eye opener. Even though it's coming, it's still like, oh crud, here we go. Okay, you might not make every final of every single meet for every event, but that's what keeps that fire burning and keeps you working your butt off so that you're able to make every final the following year, and so on and so forth.
Now, obviously, in one of our partnerships, if you will, on this show, for the last several months, has been Coach Connors. Coach Connors was interested in doing a podcast. Obviously, well documented the impact he had on Pirate football, in particular, throughout the '90s, and then his second stint once he returned from the place to the west. But Coach Connors, he obviously had such a huge impact in football that was so well documented. But what about with other sports? And did you work directly with him?
Yes. Coach never worked directly with me as an athlete per se, but I got to know Coach really well. And then going into my fourth year, I actually that summer trained with football. He asked me to train with the football team that summer. So I trained with the combo guys that summer in the weight room. That was an experience. Talk about intimidation. So that was pretty cool. And then come the following summer, he came up to me about 2 weeks before camp was to start, and he said, Clayton, what are you doing this year? And I said, I have another year of eligibility, coach. And he said, all right, you want to work for me? I said, excuse me? He said, you're going to be my GA. I said, well, how? I have to compete. And he said, well, can you work for me and compete? I said, I don't know, sir. He said, run upstairs and ask Miss Rosie. So literally, I ran out the back door of the weight room. I was getting ready to work out. I ran out the back door of the weight room and up the front steps of Ward Sports Med to the third floor to meet with Miss Rosie. And I asked her the question, and she looked at me and she said, in her little soft voice, well, Michelle, I don't know. Have a seat. I'm going to call somebody. And about an hour later, we had our answer, and good heavens, that's how I became a coach. I was supposed to go to medical school. I didn't think I was going to be coaching. So that's how this all happened, thanks to Jeff Connors. So he's been next to my dad. He's the most instrumental man in my life in terms of a mentor. There's not enough words, enough things I can say about him without getting emotional. He's had a huge impact on my life, And a lot of my coaching, a lot of my ideas come from the time I spent with him. I can only wish that I had had more time in terms of actual, like, one-on-one time, him coaching me. And actually, when I was competing post collegiately, he did write my programs my last couple of years. So I did spend some time with him at that school to the west. I would check in with him every couple of weeks and go train at that school. Wasn't I actually trained at that school quite a bit. I worked with the throws coach there at the time for several years, but so unfortunately, I had quite a tie to that place, um, much to my mother's dismay. But yeah, so the Jeff Connors is one hell of a man, and I can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, no doubt. And love what he's doing right now with absolute empowerment. Attempting to have a impact not only on current student athletes, but coaches, whoever he can reach through this platform via podcast on all podcast platforms and the Sports Objective YouTube channel. But you talk about that. You described the transition, how it wasn't all that difficult after the first 2 or 3 weeks. So I know you were doing all 3 throwing events. Was that the plan from the get-go?
Well, at first, actually, so I had never thrown the hammer. I did not, because the hammer is still in this country not very big at the high school level. It's coming on more and more and more. Um, so out of high school, it was shot and discus. Um, I was bound and determined to be a hammer thrower. I am a very small thrower. I'm extremely short in stature, or small in stature, and size wise, though most people think I'm huge in Eastern North Carolina and among the East Carolina community and so on and so forth. I'm actually pretty small for a thrower, even at my biggest. But at 5'4", I'm definitely not your average thrower. So I knew if I wanted to dream of being an Olympian and throwing post collegiately, that the hammer was really going to be where I was going to have that opportunity. That event was going to be where I was going to be able to utilize what made Michelle, which was my speed and my power. Problem? I needed to learn how to throw the event. I needed someone to teach me the event. So I got a little taste of it at the national high school meet my senior year. They needed one more person to throw the event in order for it to be legal. So I did and made an absolute kook out of myself, but I had a blast and I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. So at that point, a dream was completely born and off I went with it. Yet I still didn't throw it my freshman year. It wasn't until that summer after my freshman year, my dad and I started going down to South Carolina and working with a gentleman by the name of David Vandergriff, who, in my opinion, was one of the best hammer guys in the country. He has since passed in the last few years, but he was very close with the late Yuri Sadiq, who actually still is the world record holder. And Dave just understood the event, and he took a huge interest in me and spent tons of time with Dad and I teaching us the event. And so it was my sophomore year that I actually began throwing the hammer, and that's all she wrote. The first meet I threw 160 feet, just under 50 meters. And from there, it was history. I was in love, and it just kept going from there.
And obviously, it progressed to the point you were the first ECU female athlete to earn All-American honors in the hammer throw, placing ninth in the event at the '99 NCAA Outdoor Track and Field Championships. But progressing up to that point, you'd had an awful lot of success. Both within the CAA, which is the Colonial Athletic Association, that a lot of longtime Pirates will remember that we were members of for years, and then also regionally, both on, or I say on the field, in the events, and then also obviously in the classroom as well, as you were the most outstanding female scholar athlete. I believe, what was that, like your sophomore, junior year?
Mm-hmm. My sophomore year, yes. No, junior year. It was my junior year, and then
So
was on the
just talk
all
about that
academic team.
balance and that progression. Both balancing academics, because I know you were, as you mentioned, headed to med school prior to being derailed by Coach Connor.
Old Coach C. Yeah, the balance, that just, my mom was an educator. So that's just how it was in the household. There was never any question. You took care of your athletics after school, whether it was gymnastics or track. We owned horses. My sisters were equestrian riders, and volleyball players, basketball players. We were all into cheerleader. We had a cheerleader. Every family has a cheerleader, right? God bless my father. And we took care of all that. And then you came home, you ate dinner, and you took care of your homework. There just always had to be that balance. That there was just no question. And so it was just ingrained in me. I never fought it, never thought any other way. That's just how it was. They deserved equal time and the same amount of dedication and devotion.
No doubt. That's kind of same here. My mom was an educator of 40 plus years, and she had her master's degree, and she had actually, before getting into education, had considered something in the medical field as well as you did, as you did. But so yeah, it was, the importance of academics was impressed upon me at an early age, and like you said, developing those good habits, and just making you see, hey, if you didn't complete your schoolwork and do the best you could, then the sports weren't going to happen.
The other isn't going to happen. And I mean, that's what we try to impress upon these guys here today. Like, you're here for a reason, but without A, there won't be B. But yeah, like, even to put that further, my mom and one of my twin sisters are in the Educators Hall of Fame at East Carolina as well. So it's just silly. Our family is something else.
Before we talk about that honor of being inducted into the ECU Athletic Hall of Fame 6 years after your mother, with her legendary golf career, which we'll discuss, just talk about that 1999 accomplishment of being top 10 at the NCAA championships. Was that back then? Was that still in Eugene? Was that where that was?
No, they actually they used to rotate it around a lot more. That year it was in Boise, Idaho, on the blue track, or at the blue field. It was that day, it was 42 degrees and raining sideways. It was a perfect day for an outdoor track and field meet.
Sounds like it.
But it was awesome. The field was stacked that year. There were several international athletes. My claim to fame of that final was I was the only one that did not bust their tail. I remained on 2 feet the entire competition. So, yep, that's my claim to fame. 1999 women's hammer final at NCAA's. This is the only one that did not fall.
In Boise, Idaho.
In Boise, Idaho. That's right. It was so freaking cold. Oh my God.
before people really became, they were good then, but just a few years later, 5 to 7 years later, they really exploded onto the scene in football with the blue turf
Exactly.
and winning the Fiesta Bowl over Oklahoma before the Pirates and Chris Johnson had to take
Chris
care of
Johnson
them
in
the
Hawaii.
following year in
That's right.
the Hawaii Bowl.
That's right.
But a Hall of Fame career, and you first talk about your mom. You talk about her being an educator and a tremendous golfer. Um, Unfortunately, we lost her a few years back. So just tell Pirate Nation about her and not only the golfer, but more importantly, the woman.
Amazing woman, spitfire, a damn Yankee. There's no other way to describe her. An amazing mother. She gave up everything, even though my dad is say she didn't give up anything, because she was the most amazing mom you could ever have asked for the four of us. She was at everything. She missed nothing. And she raised four girls that were all, right now we're 46, 44, 44, and 42 years old. So I still, to this day, I have one that is 6, and I do not know how on this planet she did it. But yeah, she, amazing golfer, amazing woman, great wife. Dinner was on the table, home cooked meal every single darn night. We did not eat out. She was just unbelievable. You knew what to do, you knew what not to do. She was a disciplinarian, but every single one of our friends knew where to come when they needed something. That door was always open. She would take in anybody. Towards the end of her educator's career, she worked with the at-risk students. So to me, she really finished where she belonged. She worked with the kids that had, in most people's eyes, zero chance of graduating from high school. And that woman would work with these poor kids and make them believe in themselves and make them love themselves. And she would love them, and they would walk across that stage at the end of the year. And my dad gets emotional talking about it. And she helped save so many kids. It was utterly amazing. And that's just who she was. That's her in a nutshell. But don't cross her, because she'd let you know about it. She was a feisty one, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, that's funny. You described her perfectly. Didn't know her well, but had the opportunity to interact at a handful of pirate events and so forth, and there was no mistaking the feisty side of her. Whether it's yelling at an official or umpire or whatever the
Oh
case may
Lord, yes.
be. And then I remember my dad and I would be riding home, let's say a baseball game at Elon or wherever, and we'd be laughing because I said, wow, she was a
Old Gail got after somebody.
firecracker. But but you kind of transitioning, you bring up your dad. Obviously, many in Pirate Nation are familiar with LB Clayton, at least a Pirate fan, LB Clayton. But as you mentioned, a very interesting football career, as you were telling me off the air several weeks back when we had this lined up the first time. LB, so when he originally went to East Carolina, went in the mid '60s and played for Stass, but then after his military duty, he came back and then also played for Sonny Randall.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
So yeah, and that was obviously 6-7 years apart there.
Right. Yeah.
So
He thought that he was there, just to play ball the first time around. And so then he went and spent some time with Uncle Sam. But what was cool about that was he got to play some pretty amazing football. I guess, considered kind of semi-pro at that time over in Germany. He was in the Air Force, but played for the Army. Don't ask. I don't quite understand. But so though he was away, he was still playing ball. So that was pretty awesome. So he never really missed a beat per se. And then came back and played for the Pirates to finish out his career. And that's when Mom and him met.
That's good. So instead of 4 years of football, he may have gotten even more.
More,
So
exactly.
kind of like
Exactly.
kind of like these guys playing in the COVID era where the 2020 season did not even count.
Didn't count. That's right. We got guys getting 6 and 7 years now.
And Pirate fans, if you're in the region here, whether it's right there in Greenville or going to the baseball games, like I know my dad ran into him times this year where I wasn't even able to attend, over at Elon, Chapel Hill, wherever, odds are if the Pirates are playing and LB doesn't have something going on, he's going to be there.
If he's not officiating a track meet, he's going to be wherever the
Exactly.
Pirates are. Yep.
But kind of shifting gears back to your career post East Carolina, you were talking about getting the early start on your coaching career, but I know you also had the opportunity to compete some, and you were in the USA track and field Olympic team trials in the hammer throw. Describe that experience.
It was amazing. I got the opportunity twice in 2000 and 2004. As I get older, I guess it becomes a little bit more of an accomplishment. Obviously didn't accomplish what I set out to do, which was to make an Olympic team. So that will forever be slightly disappointing. But I had the opportunity to represent the US a couple times up in Canada. And there's nothing better than being able to represent your country. And especially when you're doing something that you love and, that you've been given a gift of talent that maybe the person, next to you does not have. You've just been blessed with something that you're good at and that you love. So that was awesome. I made some amazing friends along the way, met some amazing people, world record holders, and just some outstanding members of this world. So for those experiences and all the places that it took me via travel, I'm forever indebted to the sport of track and field.
And for our viewers and listeners, in 2003, you were ranked 7th nationally, and consistently in the top 10 for about a 5 or 6 year period there from 2000 to 2005.
Correct.
And then in addition to what you were doing in the hammer throw, talk about your accomplishments in the weight room.
So the weight room always came kind of easy to me. So I competed in Olympic weightlifting for a few years as well and had some pretty good success there. I finished 3rd at nationals in 2005. Then I tore my elbow. Never had, back injuries, but that just kind of happens and you deal with it and move on. But I tore my elbow in about 2 months after nationals. And then I had Tommy John surgery, and with one of Dr. Andrews' people from here in Birmingham, actually, and had that done at Carolina's Medical Center there in Charlotte. And had that done in December of 2005, and then came back and competed at a national meet in December, exactly 364 days later, December of 2006, and finished 2nd. So at that American Open. So Olympic weightlifting was a blast. It just grip it and rip it, baby. You just grab it and take care of it. But Yeah, I did that for a few years, and I still tool around with it a little bit. I had some shoulder surgery about a year and a half ago from crazy enough, from when I was up in New Hampshire pushing my car out of a snowbank. I tore my bicep tendon in my labrum. Who knew? Who knew? Who knew? But so that's been a little bit of a pain in the butt. But I'd really like to compete again if possible. So kind of working on that right now, seeing what the old body would be able to handle again.
So, with your coaching career, you actually, as you already mentioned, began in the weight room. So, talk about your progression there. Very, briefly each stop. I know you had the connection, and I say connection. You obviously had a strong resume. For someone so young coming out of East Carolina because of the experience with Coach Connors, but a guy who had an East Carolina background, but was at Virginia Tech, Mike Gentry.
Right. That was definitely an awesome connection. When I interviewed with Coach Gentry, he said to me, I can promise you'll never work for another Jeff Connors again, but I won't be too far behind. And I just started laughing my butt off, because back in Coach Gentry's day, he was pretty feisty too. But that was an awesome experience. I was the first female to ever work with football at Virginia Tech, so that was a pretty awesome deal. It took a little while, took some convincing, not on Coach Gentry's part, but on the football staff part. So that was awesome, because Vic and that whole crew, Andre Davis, and gosh, it was just, that whole team was loaded at that time. That was 2000, 2001 seasons. So that was a lot of fun. So yeah, I went from ECU as a GA to Virginia Tech full time. I was the coordinator of strength and conditioning for women's Olympic sports. So I worked with all the women's sports, and had dance and cheerleading, assisted with men's and women's swimming, helped out with wrestling, and then ended up helping with football up there. So that was a beautiful experience. Then went back to ECU and was there for a good little while. And then when I left ECU, I ended up going to Duke as the throws coach, was there for 2 seasons, then went to Dartmouth for 5, and was the throws coach and strength coach there. And then in 2009, Mark and I made the move down here, and we have been at old Troy University ever since.
Yeah, you talk about that. Talk about the relationship with Mark. Obviously, for Pirate fans, you have Kim McNeil, the head women's basketball coach, and her husband Corey is the top assistant. So and tell us about your relationship. Obviously, your husband is there at Troy. Is I'm trying to remember his official title, but basically head track and field coach.
Right.
I think it's director of track
Yeah.
and field instead of head coach. But and then obviously you are the assistant coach for throws and weight training.
Yeah. So in July of 2009, Mark got the position of director of track and field and cross country down here in Troy. And we were, I always say scheduled, it makes it funny, but we were, I guess, scheduled to get married in August. And so he got hired a couple of weeks before the end of July, and I was officially hired August 1st. So we were not married yet. So there was no nepotism issue at the time. And, but we still had to go through all the paperwork and everything, but that's just, the way it goes. But yeah, so then, obviously I came with him, and so I'm the throws coach and take care of all of our travel. I'm kind of like the director of operations, throws coach, strength coach, and equipment manager. I think those are my official titles for the team. And also sports psychology consultant, because I do have a degree in sports psychology. So I take care of that. Mark takes care of all of the head coaching stuff. I'll just put it that way, and all the day-to-day operation of the team. And then we have our lovely assistant that does all of our recruiting. God bless her. I'm so glad she does it because it's a headache. I thank her constantly for doing it. And then we have our distance coach and 2 GAs. We have a good little setup. We got a great crew. I cannot believe this is the 9th season that we have been here. It'll be 9 years come August that we have been down here. And they have been, Maddie is 6 years old. She'll be 7 at the end of July. And she travels with us. She is the team mascot. She has 93 brothers and sisters. And we have a very supportive administration from the moment she was born. So we are highly, highly, highly fortunate. I hear very different stories from some of my dear friends. So there is a reason why we are here. I do know that.
And of course, the Troy Trojans, a member of the Sun Belt Conference, excellent league, a very up and coming league, and had a tremendous football season this year.
Yes. Coach John Summerall is a go-getter, amazing family. I love his wife, Ginny. She's a great friend. Our daughter and their children are good friends, but John was just what the doctor ordered. He's a disciplinarian. He's done a heck of a job with that team. Came in and got them going immediately. The fans, the Trojan Nation love him. I'm super excited about this season. When you know as well as I do, Bubba, when football is going well, the university is going well. I mean, it's the same way in Greenville. When the Pirates are winning, everybody's winning. So it brought such a renewed sense of just, it was so much fun here this fall. So really looking forward to it. They're in spring ball right now, just like the Pirates are. Things are going well. He just signed a 4-year extension to his contract, which is super exciting for all of us here. So yeah, I'm really, really excited for the old Trojans.
A couple more things for you. Going back to 2011 to that Hall of Fame induction weekend, I know that was the second year of the Ruff and McNeil era. And, what are your memories of, who else was inducted that season?
What season was that, Bubba? Sorry.
It was 2011. So I was just saying, do you recall who else was inducted into the Hall of Fame that same year?
Me and AC. Anthony Collins.
Okay, Tony Collins. Yep.
Yep. That was awesome. That will forever be my Hall of Fame twin. So we all my pictures are with him that year.
Yeah, he's quite the character.
Yep, he is. And he hadn't had either of his knee surgeries yet, and that's all he kept talking about. And I was like, well, that's okay, because at least you'll be closer to my height right now, because when you have them, you'll be taller than me.
And I know you keep up with the Pirates, despite, like you said, having been in Alabama for nearly a decade now. As I mentioned, we crossed paths there in Birmingham at the Birmingham Bowl back in late December when the Pirates blew out Coastal Carolina. But staying abreast of things from afar, just talk about how East Carolina athletics are really trending up after several down years.
Oh yes, it's we have a family group text, and if there's anything Pirates going on, we're talking about it. So I'm always in the know, always know what's going on. If it's streaming on ESPN Plus, anything that I can catch it on, I have it on my phone if we're traveling or on the TV if I'm at home. But yes, things are trending up. Coach Houston, I love him. I love his demeanor. I love talking to Dad after he's met with him and chatted with him. I hope I can meet him in person, maybe even this fall if I get the opportunity to get over there. He just seems like an amazing, just kind of go-getter disciplinarian. I do love that part of him. He seems like a no nonsense, but at the end of the day, he still loves those guys and is going to fight for them. And that's very much like myself. I'll do anything for these kids, but I'll be gosh darn. They're going to act right. They're going to do right. They're going to know right from wrong. We're going to have fun, but we're going to do it the right way. And, but yes, women's basketball, good gracious, what a year. Congratulations, Coach Kim. That was awesome. Coach Schwartz, I think things are really trending up there. I like the style of play. I like what I saw on the court this year. Cliff, I love you, man. Absolutely love you. I can't say enough about you. I just, even volleyball's trending up. Like everything's really, really looking good. And there's nothing that does my heart better than to be on the road and see that Pirate bus, and good Lord Almighty, my child will gosh darn almost come off of our bus. She'll be like, Mommy, the Pirates. I mean, it's insane.
Yep.
It's ingrained in her. You ask that kid where she's going to school and she'll tell you she's going to be a Pirate. And I'm like, Maddie, shh. You can't
I love it.
that too loud around here. But no, I things are looking great over there. And I think it's just, again, like I said earlier, football, good gracious, and it's sad, not sad. I hate to put it all in their lap, but when football is trending up, everything trends up. And I mean, it happened here this year. Football had an amazing year. Men's basketball got some wins that nobody would have expected. And it just, the camaraderie, everybody comes together. Everybody seems to play harder. Everything just seems to fall into place. Our baseball team's having a great season, or much, much better compared to last year. Like things are trending up, like you were saying. So yeah, I love to see it. I love to see the purple and gold in the win column. And my God, I love that place.
Yeah. Like you said, I was looking for the clip. I thought I had it uploaded. I was going to play Coach Houston when he slapped the podium after I think it was triple overtime win against Memphis last year. And he said, how about those freaking Pirates?
Pirates. Yes. And yeah. I was at that game.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was.
But that really got things trending in the right direction for the second half run we made in an 8-win season.
Yes.
But we could certainly talk for hours. We'd love to have you back on the show down the road. But appreciate you giving us an hour of your time, and appreciate all you did for the Pirates and will do for the Pirates in the future.
Thank you so much, Bubba. I appreciate you too.
Pirate Nation, that is East Carolina Hall of Famer Michelle Clayton. We appreciate you tuning into the show. Remember, you can follow us on social media, on Twitter at TheSportsOBJ, on Instagram and TikTok at The Sports Objective. Like and follow us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, we appreciate you tuning in, and as always, go Pirates.
You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
Yeah, my heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down to my soul, and I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode, from the sidelines down to the post. Put it down like not even close, all out to the last whistle blow. From the flag with the soul and crossbones. Everybody stand up, get your hands up, let a team know that we got they back. This is our house, this is our town, our time, everyone, I copy that. on every